Good day. This video would show how you can set up the VXG for playback of custom IQ waveform files. So we have the VXG connected to a N9032B PXA. The first thing you would want to do would be to click on signal 1. So what I have on the screen is the VXG interface. So let's go ahead and click on this little tab here. And the next thing you want to do is to launch the Keysight Signal Studio custom modulation app. So if this was blanked for you, just click on the list and select the correct application. It might take a while, but that's completely normal. We shall just give this a quick wait. You'll be prompted with this screen here. So this is Keysight Signal Studio custom modulation app. So just a quick check would be to go to instrument and set the frequency and amplitude. Just leave this as default. And the waveform setup, instead of custom OFDM, we would select custom IQ. Now we can just leave this as default as well. Now let's get into custom IQ. I'm interested in a 64 QAM 100 MHz bandwidth signal, so I'm gonna update that. And I'll probably update the alpha as well. So instead of 16 QAM, we will pick 64. Once we're happy with that, we can go ahead and to generate and download the waveform file. Now that's completed, that will be fed to the VXG and played. Before we move out of Signal Studio, we'd like to save the VSA setup file, as this would help with our setup later. So we can just I'll just overwrite this file. And we'll just copy that file over to the PXA. So now that we're done, we can just minimize the Signal Studio app. And if we go to home now, we can see that that's all reflected in the VXG. So we have a custom modulation file playing at 1 GHz with an amplitude of -10 dBm. So the green sign here would indicate that the waveform is played out of channel 1. Now we can move on to the PXA. So this is the default screen that you'll be prompted with. We can go ahead and click that and launch VSA. So under the VSA app, that's where we can look into the demodulation analysis. This is the default setup. So let's change that as I'm interested in the custom IQ data. So go to measurement setup, measurement type, and instead of vector, we would go to general purpose digital demod. And instead of having tabs across, I'm just going to change the view to a 2x2 grid. That's what I'll like to see. So this is where the setup file that we save from Signal Studio would come handy. And that would be to go to File, Recall Setup, and point to the folder where that setup file was saved. So let's click Open. And once we're here, we could go into an auto range. And as you can see, the demod analysis is now displayed. So I might just want to adjust a few things and we'll also go through how we can go about setting stuff manually. So that's the 100 megahertz of signal that we've just created. And now back to the IQ data, I might want to look into the constellation instead of the full IQ. So let's go to format. So that's trace A, format. And instead of IQ, I'm just going to go to constellation. So if you were to go to set this up manually, you'll have to click onto each of these tabs to set. So the default was at 5 gigahertz. So my signal was at 1, so we'll have to change that and have a span. that allows you to see the whole bandwidth of the signal. Under the IQ tab, you can go to Measurement Setup, Custom IQ Demode Properties. So if this was not set correctly, you could modify them. So because I recall the file, you could see that that's 64 QAM. If that's not right, you could always edit it. So I'll close that since that's right. Symbol rate was at 100 megahertz, and that's what we have as well. Result length is just to increase the number of points depending on your signal. We're happy with that, so we'll just keep it there. Next would be to go to filter, and that's where you can change the alpha setting if this wasn't set correctly. So that's all for showing the displays we have. Do let us know if you have questions. Thanks for watching.